Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review O Canada. And this is a new drama from director Paul Schrader, who wrote this screenplay based off of the Russell Banks book. And Schrader, obviously known from Taxi Driver and Raging Bull and Last Temptation of Christ, as a screenwriter for Martin Scorsese, but also directing films like Mishima and the First Reformed. And here he tackles the story of Leo Fife, who's a documentarian who was a draft evader during Vietnam, escaped to Canada, and now on his deathbed is telling his story as documented by some of his former students, as he is a documentarian, a photographer, and a teacher. And Richard Gere plays Fife, who's on the tail end of his life, and Jacob Elordi is young Leo as he's telling these stories. You have Uma Thurman as his partner. Michael Imperioli leads the team who's creating this documentary, this interview with Fife. And this film has some bold and interesting storytelling devices. You have some flashbacks that are shot in black and white. You have this structure that's, hey, we're interviewing this guy who's then telling us stories, and we're getting fragments of his story and really trying to decipher what's real, what's fake, and what has been overly dramatized through his experiences, as this man certainly has some tall tales to tell and tall tales to deconstruct. And I think Richard Gere gives a really fantastic performance of the stripped down, prickly, older gentleman who's past the point of putting on airs, and he's kind of just there. And it's a very vulnerable performance for Gere, because it's like you're not trying to make yourself look good at all. He's actually looking quite bad. Uma Thurman, I think, does a fine job. Lordy does a fine job in these flashbacks. Michael Imperioli is a good anchoring catalyst to hold the structure together of the film, even going as far as saying sorry as he's telling his story. Very Canadian. This film definitely borrows a lot from like a Citizen Kane kind of structure, even to the point where it's like it has a bit of a Rosebud type moment as well, and you're just like, okay. But I think this film is interesting in how it's trying to explore the ideas of tales, myths versus truths, and how people can, manipulate and twist and turn what really happened in things to create a mythos around you. It's very, Liberty Valance in that kind of way, a film that I recently watched for one of my shows. And it's just that kind of what's real and how do we deconstruct it, and how an older man at this point in his life is tearing down all the mythology around what he has built up his whole entire life. And you get, his dynamics with his partner, Uma Thurman, and was a former student, and all those kinds of things. I think this film struggles because it is so messy and muddled and clunky in how it's all chopped up and pulled together. I think it could be a little alienating in that kind of way. And it's a little bit too tipping its hat and looking at behind the scenes of like the mechanisms of how the story is being told. I think Schrader can get a little in his own little space here in terms of how he's portraying his story. But in general, I think this has interesting elements, a strong central performance, and some interesting storytelling techniques that make this at least an interesting and engaging kind of film, an ambitious kind of film, even if it does not fully come together cohesively in a way that I'm sure Schrader hoped. And it's not a great film. It's not a good film. It's a fine film. And I think there's some merit to at least checking it out. But those are my thoughts on O Canada. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.